y'all. It's your girl coming at you live from Simply Talking Podcast. Today we talking about The View, where we're about to drop a compilation like no other. Get ready to hear the realest, the funniest, and the most woke takes from your favorite ladies in the game. So grab your coffee, kick back, and let's dive into this mixtape of hot topics and even hotter debates. It's about to get lit up in here, so buckle up and enjoy the ride.
America first met Omarosa as the supervillain of the first season of The Apprentice, and now she's working for him again as assistant to the... No, you never heard that, Omarosa?
Not supervillain.
Oh, just villain.
Like
okay.
TV. That's big screen stuff.
Now she's
like
working as the director of communications for the Office of Public Liaison. Please welcome Omarosa. So, my dear, you look very good.
Thanks, Joy.
You look very nice. We're in red today. So you're working for the Donald.
Well, this is my first time back in 13 years. Oh, wow. I was here on the first season of The Apprentice. Welcome. Good to be back. And my mentor, and who I call the legend of TV, Barbara Walters, was here when I last was here, and it was an honor to be here.
That's right. So you're working in the White House for the president. What exactly are you doing? And do you genuflect in the morning? That's what I want to know.
Say that again.
What are you doing for him?
So I am Director of Communications for the Office of Public Liaison, and really we are the face, the coordination between the different groups that want to have a voice and to inform the policy that's happening with this administration. And so I'm honored to serve all of the different groups who want to engage with this administration. In fact, right now I'm planning our Black History Month program, and it's going to be extravagant.
Wow.
Well, let me follow up on that, because you say you're working on Black History Month, and one of your jobs during the campaign was to reach out to the African-American community.
I was the Director of African-American engagement for the Trump-Pence campaign.
Right, but 94% of Black women did not vote for Donald Trump. They voted for Hillary Clinton. And how do you respond to the criticism that Donald Trump doesn't really understand the Black community, doesn't really...
Well, let's put it in context.
Well, let me finish my question.
Well, how many questions? Because that's about 3 or 4.
The criticism has been that he's just using you for optics and that he doesn't really care about the Black community.
First one, and then we can go through each step. First of all, African Americans traditionally vote Democratic. Let's just establish a historical precedent. They vote for the Democrat 94, 95%. So that's no different. But Donald Trump got 13% of the African American vote. He doubled what Romney got. And he is very, very excited about engaging with the African American community. Now, your second and third question I really didn't hear. So if you want to go through those again.
The criticism has been in the African American community that Donald Trump doesn't really care about the community. And in fact, he's just using you as optics.
First of all, no one uses me. No one uses me. First and foremost, let me just tell you a little bit about myself, and then you can understand how I got where I am. I grew up in Youngstown, Ohio, in the Westlake Projects, a housing project. So I am the embodiment of the American dream. I grew up on welfare, on Section 8 housing. My father was killed when I was 7 years old. I went to public schools. I went to Central of Ohio, got to Howard University, and started to work in politics. So I earned my way to sit in the White House. No one gave me anything, okay? And I think that when you start talking about the African American community, you know, the last administration decided not to aggressively do African American outreach. They felt that if they helped all Americans, then the Black community would be helped. And that, you know, that really isn't the approach that we're taking. We have a very strategic plan of engaging this community. We see what's happening in the inner cities. We see that 56% of African American men under 30 are either unemployed or not in school. And we want to work to change that. We see the violence that's happening in Chicago. It's unacceptable.
They can't do what you did.
It's unacceptable to see the amount of murders that are happening. 1 second, Joy. Because what's happening in Chicago, and there's not an uproar that so many people are dying and being shot, is unacceptable.
Okay, well,
and so we are going to address that. And this president already this
he's
week
talked about
tweeted
that.
about
He
Chicago.
talked about wanting to bring
I
in
want
the
him
federal
to do
government.
anything there is to do to make sure that no family goes through what my family went through. My brother was murdered not even 5 years ago, shot dead in his own home. When I see these families in Chicago, 700 or 800 families had to go through what my family went through. I had to sit in the courtroom with the man that murdered my brother. This is more than just politics. For me, Joy, this is my passion.
I understand what you're saying. I'm questioning, why do you think you were able to make it and all these other people could not?
You know, that's a bigger question than for
Well,
a 3-minute
does racism
segment,
have anything
Joy.
to do with it, for instance?
And there are a lot of historical things that has happened that other people could answer. I'm going to tell you about my life and my
But why do you
experience.
think President
I was
Trump-
able to make it. One
why do you
second,
think
Gretchen.
why do
I
you
was
think
able
he
to
can
make
help?
it because my mother made sure that we were in the church, that Christ was the head of our lives, that education was at the top of every single thing that we did.
I think
and
it's quite
she
common
kept
amongst
us
the
out
black
of
community.
trouble and out of the streets.
Yes.
And that's why I made it. I can't speak because we're not all a monolith. The African American community is so diverse. But my mother and the sacrifice she made after my father was murdered is the reason that I am successful
And I agree
today.
with all those things that you say, and hats off for all
Thank
of your
you.
hard work in getting to where you are today. I guess my question is, what is it about Donald Trump, President Trump, that you see that will help change the way in which African Americans are in our communities?
Well, I think that you all have gotten to know him as a business mogul, as an
Reality
entertainer,
star. Reality star.
as a reality star, now as the president of the United States,
You can't
Joy.
make it up.
But I know him. I know it's got to burn your
They say
blood.
anybody can be president. He proved it. Go
It's
ahead.
got to be really, Joy, I know it's got to be really, really hard after, the last year and a half of all the things that you said about Donald to see him sitting in the Oval Office. I know it's got to be hard for you, but I have to tell you
hard.
that I know
It
him.
kills me, as a matter of
And
fact.
I know it
And I
does.
love that.
But here's the great thing. You all know him as the president. I know him as a friend. I know his heart. I know the things that he's seen has never been reported on and probably folks won't ever
So we
talk
shouldn't
about.
listen to what he says?
I'm talking about my experience, Joy.
Yeah.
You can listen to what you want. You have decided to continue to hit him and hit him and hit him and not even give him a chance in his first
I'm
week.
waiting for him
But
to
I will
apologize.
say
I
this.
want to ask you, though,
You want who?
I'm waiting for him to apologize for all the things he said about
You?
No, not to
please.
me, not to me, to
just wanna- I
veterans,
just
to
wanna-
John McCain,
To the
to the
disabled.
handicapped, the disabled.
I think the message that he has personally about school choice, about opportunity, about jobs, I think that message did get to a lot of people, and that's why a lot of African Americans, a lot of people who were in poverty, people of all genders and races came out. My issue is that
Americans did not come out for Donald
they
Trump.
came out more than they had for Republicans in the past, and that
They
means
did,
something.
and you have to give some credit to that,
But
Sonny.
I think-
But
I
But
think
you also have to
problem-
move from campaign now. He's the president.
Right,
We're no
but
longer
here's the-
campaigning,
here's my
so
question
those
for
same
you.
lines don't
How
even
do you
work.
We have
bring
to
those?
go.
How do you bring the people in who are saying, you know what, no matter what, we're doomed, who are refusing to listen to the fact that a lot of these programs, in my opinion, will bring opportunity? How do you make those people who aren't inclined to
when
listen
we come back.
to listen?
Omarosa,
When
we're
we come
going
back.
to commercial. When we come back, she can answer your question. And we are back with Omarosa. Okay, Jed, you were saying.
Yeah, I was saying that although some of these policies, school choice, whatnot, have a positive outreach, I think there are some who feel that because of the statements he's made that are divisive and whatnot, that we're doomed. And they have this philosophy of we're doomed. How do you reach those people to say, hold on a second, listen to what we're actually trying to do and give us a chance?
Well, I think that once people see the results, I mean, he's about delivering and being productive. And we've already seen from this first week that he is going to do exactly what he said he's going to do. And we can trust that if Donald Trump says he's going to give jobs, he's going to bring back manufacturing, that he's about America first, then that's what he means. And we've seen that in 5 days. And people who even disagree with him have to agree that this first week has been probably one of the most productive weeks of any administration.
It has, but it seems that sometimes he gets a little off track as well, and he goes back to the crowd size at the inauguration and now the voter fraud investigation with 3 to 5 million people voting, illegally. And now you have Jason Chaffetz, from Utah, member of Congress, who says, I'm not going to start an investigation into this because I don't see any evidence of it. Is this a distraction for President Trump?
Well, I think that there's a time of adjustment. He's not a politician. He's never held office, and he's moving from private sector to governing, and it takes an adjustment time. I think in the first 5 days, he's done a spectacular job of dealing with the most important high-pressure job in the world. And so we have to give him time to make that shift. And I believe that you will see that this president is going to be incredible for this country. And I am excited about what's happening with this administration. I'm very honored to be a part of it.
What if they find out in the voter fraud investigation that Hillary won the election? Will we do it over again?
We'll find out that because she didn't win.
There's a possibility she won by 3 million more votes. Isn't it possible?
I think that anything is possible, but I think what's more important right now, I think about the families who lost loved ones in the tornadoes. I think about the families that the president talked about this week who became victims of violence because of illegal immigrants. I'd like to continue to talk about the election. It amuses me, but the truth is we have real issues. We have real issues and there are real Americans who have problems that we have to address. So you all can sit at the table and continue to talk about those things in the media, but we have a job to address. We have a job to make sure that the American people have exactly what they need.
Let me just jump in here real quickly. The day after the inauguration, millions of women marched around the world to protest President Trump. Many were offended by some of the things he said along the way, but how did you remedy this as a woman? Did any of this resonate with you?
Well, first, I'm an American. I'm a very proud American, so let's start with that. And I know people like to put labels. Omarosa's black, she's a woman, she's this. I'm an American first. And seeing those women march last week, it made me very proud. It's one of the most important fundamental rights that we have in this country. The right to assemble, the freedom of speech, and the right to protest. I love seeing that. And there is a march going on. There's a march going on right now, the March for Life, that I hope that you all will give the same type of coverage that you
We did yesterday, actually. We covered it yesterday.
But today, it's going on right now. And so that same freedom should be afforded to all Americans. And I'm so glad that the Vice President is probably preparing to speak at the March for Life right now.
But why do you think it's so divisive? It's so divisive in our society right now.
It's politics. You know, politics is a tough game. This is my second time in the White House, so I'm not really new to the tension that comes with it. What's new to me is just this desire to paint Donald Trump with this negative brush without giving him a chance to do what he said he's going to do.
Can I just ask you this? We've been talking about how divisive this election is, and Gretchen's been talking about how divisive this election is. We often say that it comes from the top. He did lead this very divisive campaign. Will we hear him apologize?
Don't you think the media contributed to that?
Will we hear him apologize?
No. Of course not.
The things that he said.
Stood by everything that he said. And now let me just say,
reporter?
He didn't make fun of a disabled reporter, but you can continue to say that. If you say it enough, people may start to believe it. Let me just say this as I close this. Y'all can keep throwing things at me. I'm not going to really fall for that. What I will say is the American people can listen to me right now and right here. We are committed to making this country the best it's going to be. We're not going to look in the past. We're going to look forward and put this country first. And that's what's not been happening in the last 8 years. We're going to put America first. We're going to put people back to work. We're going to make sure people are safe. And that's what this president is about.
Same as you,
This is a table for you all to negotiate things that you want to talk about from the past. But I now work for this country. Yes. And I take my job very seriously.
Can we see his
and
tax returns, do you think?
See, Joy, do you? As I see we only have 1 minute left. My handsome fiance traveled all the way here from Jacksonville, Florida, and he is in the audience. Girl, I'm talking about my man. He is in the audience. No, boo. I'm talking about my man. We're getting married. I'm so glad that he's here. He's a Democrat. I'm a Republican. We get along just fine.
He may want to see his tax return. You want to see his tax return? Raise your hand if your answer is yes.
I just want to know if you're going to take his last name.
Oh, of course, he's my husband. He's going to be my husband in April.
If you're vibing with this fire compilation from The View, don't forget to show some love. Hit that like button, share the goodness with your crew, and make sure to subscribe for more lit content coming your way. Let's keep the party going and spread those good vibes far and wide.
Out of the backfield, Barkley slips 2 tackles and picks up the first down.
Moves right here, makes the first guy miss. The spin move at the last second, and then...
Correct. You were waterboarded as part of your Navy SEAL training, correct?
Well, it wasn't part of Navy SEAL training. It was part of what they call SEER school, Survival, Escape, Resistance, Evasion. It's a school they required you to go to prior to the combat zone of Vietnam. And yes, we were all waterboarded there, and yes, it is torture.
What do you think about Nancy Pelosi in terms of what she has been claiming with the CIA, lying to,
I think what's
Congress?
worse is this, the fact that it happened. If we hadn't waterboarded to begin with, none of this would be a controversy, would it?
If we hadn't waterboarded...
torture is torture. If you're going to be a country that follows the rule of law, which we are, torture is illegal.
But these were specifically approved techniques with KSM,
Approved
okay?
by who?
Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the information we extracted from him before waterboarding was zip. Afterward, he released the information.
Got all of it before waterboarding.
Yes. This was a case that was used 3 times.
The point is this. All right, wait a minute. If waterboarding is okay...
Do you want me to put you in a hole, Nelson?
Wait. If waterboarding's okay, then why don't we let our police do it to suspects so they can learn what they know?
That's an interesting question.
I'll follow that again. If waterboarding's okay, why didn't we waterboard McVeigh and Nichols, the Oklahoma City bombers, to find out if there were more people
What's
involved?
your answer to that? Why didn't we?
We did. Well, I don't know. We only seem to waterboard Muslims.
Well, that's an extreme statement. Well, one of the things
Have we waterboarded anyone else? Name me someone else we've waterboarded.
Well, one of the things that's coming out now is that they were waterboarding them to get a connection between Iraq and Al-Qaeda, and that the reason they waterboarded was to get information about so that they could justify their invasion of Iraq.
What do you think is going to happen now?
How does that work into your theory of how great it is?
Look, I'm not saying it's great, okay? I'm not saying, hey, everybody, let's go next door and get waterboarded. I'm concerned right now about Nancy Pelosi, who was supposedly briefed as it's been. She's lying.
All right. Okay.
She lied.
They want her out now. They want her out now, right? Because she lied?
Sure.
Well, why didn't they ask for Bush and Cheney to go out when they lied about why we went into Iraq?
Senator Clinton, Hillary Clinton was right there with them, as
The
were many
point is,
Democrats.
nothing's going to happen because they're all involved.
Yeah.
The Dems and Repubs are both involved. That's why President Obama's backing off from it, and they're not going to do it now. It's a good thing I'm not the president. I'm an independent, because I would prosecute the people who did it, I would prosecute the people who ordered it, and they would all go to
Would
jail.
you prosecute President Obama in the future going backwards when he ordered the killing of the Somali pirates? I mean, you have to think about
because the Somali pirates, that's apples and oranges. You're not talking about someone in custody who is supposedly under... Okay, how would we feel? Look how outraged we were when waterboarding was done to our vets in Vietnam.
Amen.
Where do you think we learned it from?
Right.
And we created the Hanoi Hilton right in Guantanamo. That's our Hanoi Hilton. People have died there. People are tortured there. I'm ashamed of my country.
People aren't basing, all those extremists are not basing their behaviors on ours. I can guarantee that. They are out to get us no matter
Should
what.
we stoop to their level?
Look,
we should be above them.
Absolutely.
Torture is wrong.
Torture is wrong, but enhanced interrogation techniques are different.
Enhanced interrogation is Dick Cheney changing a word. Dick Cheney comes up with a new word to cover his ass.
Come up with a new word. New question.
I've said it before. You give me a waterboard 1 hour in Dick Cheney, and I'll have him confessing to the Sharon Tate murders.
Yeah, baby.
The most conservative candidates in the race. You want to ban all abortions, defund Planned Parenthood, ban gay marriage, oppose same-sex unions. And yet you want to govern all the folks in the United States, or are you just governing from...
Well, my response to this, the people that have a different point of view, would you ask them the same question?
Yes, I ask everybody the same.
Well,
question. What do you?
But the point is, if someone has a different point of view, does that mean that they're only going to govern for people who support all those things?
That's why I asked. That's why I asked.
The answer is no. Of course not.
Well, then so how will you say to your constituents who may be gay or may find themselves in a position with something like Planned Parenthood? What will you replace it with if you take it away?
Well, first off, I'm for reallocating every dollar that goes to Planned Parenthood and put them in women's health centers that actually provide more comprehensive services than Planned Parenthood does. Planned Parenthood, for example, doesn't provide mammograms. Now, I know people say they do, but they don't. In fact,
they do.
No, Cecile Richards yesterday at the hearing said, in fact, they do not. In fact, there are no there are no Planned Parenthoods that provide any mammogram services. They basically provide abortion, contraception, STDs, things like and pregnancy tests. That's it. There are much more comprehensive women's health care centers. I spent a lot of time in Iowa, and in Iowa there's 213 women's health centers. 13 Planned Parenthood centers. So if you said we were going to take the Planned Parenthood money, reallocate it to actually clinics that do provide a whole host of other women's health services, women are probably going to get a more holistic health screening at those places than they would at Planned Parenthood.
So you're saying if you reallocate all of that money away from Planned Parenthood to these clinics, will those clinics then provide abortions, or where do you want these displaced women to go?
Yeah, well, there are obviously, Planned Parenthood is one abortion provider in the country. There are others that provide abortions. Some, it depends on the state. Some, there are very few abortion providers. Some, like in the state of New York, there's a lot of them. So that, again, the money that we're reallocating has nothing to do with abortion. I mean, I will accept that the money that is going to Planned Parenthood cannot be used for abortion. So when you reallocate that money away, it shouldn't affect their ability to provide abortions, unless, of course, they're commingling funds, and that's one of the questions that people have.
Party will be a game changer in the midterm elections. Politics are so intense right now that it is the perfect time for a visit from the man who has just released his 9th book titled Pinheads and Patriots. We'll talk about that in a bit. Please welcome Bill O'Reilly.
Do you have OCD or, germ phobias? Is that why you do the...
No, I just want to get to the chase here. You know, so many questions. I know you have.
Yeah, so, okay.
Look at you. Look, every time I come on here, she's, how did this happen?
Bill, I have a case of gas. That's all that's bothering me. Yeah. It's not you.
Seems to happen when you're here.
I know, I was going to say, some right-wing plot or something.
No, just gas.
Just gas. All right, well, so while we're gassing here, so Republicans, November election, they say that the Republicans are going to come out on top. What do you think?
You know, it's hard to predict this stuff because, stuff goes in and out, and it's tightening up in places like West Virginia and Washington State now. So I don't make predictions, but I will say it is a referendum on President Obama. That is what this vote is about. It's not about the individual candidates. It's about him. And people on the right, conservative people, are angry, so they're more likely to come out than the people on the left.
Are you angry?
Not really, because, the Fox News Channel did not suffer in this recession. We prospered in this recession, and I feel kind of guilty about it because a lot of my friends, working-class people, are not doing well. But we did great. So, I'm not angry about that. I'm always a little teed off about politics because I think they're a bunch of phonies, and I don't think most of them look out for us in either party.
Well, I know your show is always a... Bill O'Reilly's show gets big numbers. I know that, Bill. But now you're up against Spitzer.
Who?
Elliot Spitzer on CNN.
Not everybody's as inside as you are.
No, Elliot Spitzer is on CNN opposite Bill O'Reilly.
Well, we wish him well. It's a competitive marketplace, and he's there. He gets a shot.
You don't really wish him well, but that's...
No, I really don't. I don't care what he does. I mean, I'm not that kind of guy.
You. No,
it won't, I don't think. But look, I'm not one of these guys, I want to kill him. There's a few people I want to kill, but he's not one.
Who do you want to kill? Who do you want to kill? You're looking at me very sexually now.
No, I'm not that kind of guy. There's a couple of people who I'm not going to name their names because that gives them publicity, but who are nasty and hateful, and I don't like those people.
One thing you do on your show every night is you show Obama's dropping approval ratings. Now, do you think this is...
No, I don't do that every night, Sherry. Okay. I only do it when the new poll comes out, which is my job to do it. If it goes up, I'll show that.
In fairness, I've seen that as well.
Do you think it's because of the economy?
Of course.
That his...
Two things, and that's an excellent question. Two things are driving President Obama's poll numbers down and driving him individually crazy because he didn't expect any of this. The economy is just flat. All right, numbers came out today. Again, they're not good. So that's number one. But number two...
Again, he inherited a lot of it. He hasn't been there 10
but
years.
that statute of limitations will run out on that. He spent $1 trillion. Whoa! Yeah. Look, when you spend $1 trillion trying to turn it around, it doesn't work, that's on you, okay? It's not on the pinheads before you. macroeconomics is not my deal. I'm just explaining why his numbers are down. So the people see $1 trillion of their tax money and nothing to show for it yet. But they also see a widening gulf between the president and them personally. And that's what I write about in Pinheads and Patriots. All right, let me give you an example. The mosque down here on 9/11. That's inappropriate. It's sure they have a right to do it, and the Constitution, but it's inappropriate because a lot of the 9/11 families, who I know, say, "Look, we don't want that. That shouldn't be there."
But what about the discussion?
No. But there's the president. There's the president going, "Well, they have a right to do it." Yes. And then the guy says, and then
this is
America. Hold it. Listen to me, because you'll learn. All right. Thank you. So he says to the press, yeah, they have a right to do it, and that's true. Yeah. And then the question is, but what about the wisdom of it, Mr. President? And he goes, I'm not going to comment. Whereupon everybody in the country goes, what?
Well, wait a minute. Let me ask you this.
Let me
ask you this. So you're saying that Americans are not smart enough to recognize that while it is part of our Constitution to say freedom of religion and freedom to worship, and there were 70 families who are Muslim who also died in that building. Yeah. So you're saying that that his saying that they have the right to do it and not saying any more than that is why his approval rating has gone down?
I'm showing that there is a gulf between Americans wanted to know what his opinion was on the issue, and he wouldn't give it.
We're Americans.
That's one
agree
thing.
with him. But
you agree with it.
No,
most
we're Americans. I'm an American.
Let me break this to you. 70% of Americans don't want that mosque down there. So don't give me the weed.
I want to see that.
You want to bet on that? You want to bet? I'll show you that poll in a minute.
All I'm saying is I'm American.
Americans don't want
it.
But why is that? But why aren't we saying
it's inappropriate?
Why is it inappropriate when 70 families died?
Muslims killed this on 9/11.
Oh my God! That is.
Muslims didn't kill us on 9/11? Is that what you're saying?
Excuse me, extremists
what religion were they in?
What religion was Mr. McVeigh? Mr. McVeigh was an extremist as well, and he killed people.
70% of the country.
I don't want to sit here. I don't want to sit here.
You're outraged about Muslims killed us on 9/11.
You have just seen what should not happen. We should be able to have discussions without washing our hands and screaming and walking off stage. I love my colleagues. It should not have happened. Now, let me just say to you in a calmer voice, it was extremist. You cannot take a whole religion and demean them because of what some... Yes, you are.
No, I'm not.
When you say that it was Muslims.
If that's what you think.
That's what we think.
Extremists.
You didn't say that.
Here's the issue, and this is what has to be understood.
You've got to make a distinction,
if anybody felt that I was demeaning all Muslims, I
apologize.
Do you think the problem, though, Bill, is that if we go back in time, early in this administration, the president himself said we weren't allowed to use the word terrorist early on. So then he started using the word, hang on, hear me out. He started saying the word, he started saying radical Islamists, radical Muslims. So then there was then a closer association with what happened and the religion. I think if he would have just let us say terrorists, because there are terrorists across all religions and all faiths, then this wouldn't even be a problem.
You're no.
But here's the look. Okay. We only have a minute left.
We have more time coming back.
Okay. Here comes one of them back.
We're back because now you apologize. You apologize.
All right, but that's not the issue. The issue is that it's inappropriate because of the context of what happened on 9/11. And if I was inartful in explaining that, but Muslim fanatics, terrorists, whatever word, killed us. There are 100 mosques in New York City. Okay?
Okay.
They can move it away, and nobody's going to bother.
Okay, but the issue of the mosques, which is an issue that seems to some degree to have dissipated, and we're talking about Obama in general, may not be the major issue as to why his popularity is gone.
Separated the president from the folks.
Okay, now, you have written a book, and we're going to come back and talk about it, called Pinheads and Patriots. And at this point, it's very hard to see which you are. We'll be right back with more of Bill O'Reilly.
America First Medal Marosa as the supervillain of the first season of The Apprentice.
If you're vibing with this fire compilation from The View, don't forget to show some love. Hit that like button, share the goodness with your crew, and make sure to subscribe for more lit content coming your way. Let's keep the party going and spread those good vibes far and wide.
Out of the backfield, Barkley slips 2 tackles and picks up the first down.
Moves right here, makes the first guy miss. The spin move at the last second, and then
40 days until the election, Miss Ann Coulter is back with a new book called Mugged, where she claims that President Obama has abandoned black Americans and that the O.J. Simpson verdict was a great thing for America. Please welcome the very controversial Miss Ann Coulter. Ann. You to tell me what you're trying to say in this book, because we don't know what you're trying to say.
What I'm trying to say is race mongering has been very bad for America. Liberals use it to promote causes that have nothing to do with blacks and in fact harm blacks. And that excellent lead-in you just gave about OJ, I mean, I think that was the moment, having lived near New York City in the 70s and 80s, which was the golden era. It was like Trayvon Martin and Duke lacrosse case every day. With the OJ verdict, white America said, that's it, the white guilt bank is shut down, and that ended up being the best thing that ever happened to black Americans.
What are you talking about?
I meant that no longer...
Being acquitted was good for whom?
Yes, because you had millions of white people watching with the equivalent of what in New York we used to refer to as the Brooklyn juries, who simply would not convict even guilty black criminals, not innocent black
Hold up,
criminals.
Ms. Coulter. Please stop. Please stop. If you're going to talk about race, at least know what you're talking about. At least know what you're talking about. Well, tell me how much you know about being black.
Well, this isn't about being black.
Well, but you just said, you just made all these statements about how black people feel. Tell me how you know that. Yeah, you did.
This is not a book about black people. It is a book about white liberals. And I do know, and this is a fact, that once for years, Republican policies on crime and welfare, for example, were called racist. When they finally got implemented, after the O.J. verdict, I might add, by crime Giuliani in New York, Reagan and Bush judges overall, tens of thousands of black lives were saved. That is a fact. I don't have to know about being black, but I know because
your facts are just a little shaky. I mean, you're saying that because black people, because liberals are what? Because liberals have abandoned black people now because. What? I don't get it. I don't understand.
I don't think liberals ever cared about black people. I mean, 5 minutes after the Civil Rights Act of '64, they start calling everything that has nothing to do with black people a civil rights issue. Abortion on demand, homeless rights.
So are you saying that liberals don't care about black people? Then are you saying Republicans embrace us in a warm, fuzzy blanket?
We're not embraced back. But yeah, we tried to.
Wait a minute. So the Southern strategy was a white liberal thing? No, it was a Republican thing.
No.
And also, Newt Gingrich calls President Obama the food stamp president. That's not racist? Wait a second.
Do you really think that was, do you believe it was racist for Newt to say that the president is a food stamp president?
Well, he wouldn't say that. If we could just skip, I'm not a big fan of Newt, so if we could just skip that for a second and get to the Southern strategy. Because I've specifically disproven it. It's an absolutely liberal folklore. Republicans were winning the South since 1920. It was the outer states of the South. It was Texas, Tennessee, Kentucky, Virginia.
Voting. What are you talking about? We weren't allowed to vote.
Who was trying to get them to vote? Republicans were.
Yeah,
and the first black congressmen were all Republicans. And the first black governor was a Republican.
You're talking about way back
after is so different from
that is definitely what we're told. But in fact, the Democratic segregationists were all liberal Democrats. It is a lie that they were conservative Democrats.
It was a segregationist, darling. You know, basically, everybody was. White people were. It didn't matter whether they were Republicans or not.
Ask you a question.
The first segregationist. Just read chapter 14 in this book. The first Republicans to be elected in the South.
Listen to my grandmother, who was there, who remembers what happened.
Baker an aggressive integrationist, first Republican elected in Tennessee to the Senate. You have Winthrop Rockefeller, first Republican governor in
But you know, I have a question
Arkansas.
about today.
Integration.
Let me ask you something about what's going on now. It seems to
But
me
the Southern strategy is a lie.
It seems
And
to me
it's
that
explained
voter
here.
suppression is happening in areas where black people and Hispanics are, and it really is being promoted by the Republicans, not the Democrats. So in my view, and I have a different one from you, it looks as though the Republicans are really going against blacks, not the liberals.
No, and this
what do
is
you
a
say to
perfect
that?
example. Yes, it is, and it's a perfect example. No, I'll explain why. Of liberals using the label of civil rights to promote a liberal cause they support, i.e. voter fraud. In fact, one of the first states in the union to pass voter ID bills was Rhode Island, 85% Democratic legislature. And who pushed it? A black Democrat in the House, a black Democrat in the Senate. That's a fact.
No, you may pick out Rhode Island, but there are other states where it's completely Republican
black
driven.
Democrats be pushing this? Because they had seen
Because they
voter
want the
fraud.
Hispanic vote to go to
Can I
Romney.
ask a general question? Every book that you write is very controversial and shocking, and it's usually an opinion that's disparate with everybody else's. Do you just write these books and try to find whatever it is that's going to make everybody say,
The reason, it's an excellent question. The reason I write these books is because I try to correct things that people believe that are just false.
Here's the question
And
for
this
you.
is a lot.
This is a question because I was reading a book, and
you're the only one that says it.
Well, there are a few things. I mean, discovering that we never won the Goldwater states and Republicans didn't win the Dixiecrat states until the Dixiecrats died out.
You keep staying back in the past. You got to come into the present. But this is what I want to say.
That's new to me. The rest of it, other people know.
In reading your book, you know, you keep saying if you would read chapter 14, if you would read, you make such divisive comments and incendiary comments and hateful comments at times. It makes people not want to pick up your book and read it. So
people agree with her. Read it.
Yeah, well, people agree with
No,
it.
I don't think so. You name a hateful comment in here.
You know, when you talk about you stay in the past, that Republican.
No, only because it was brought up. There's only one chapter on the past, and I mean, it's just a fact.
But when you talk about something like voter suppression, which obviously is trying to keep black people and Latinos,
they have never done that. That was a Democrat thing.
And it's in states where they don't even have any.
Let me just, can I just say one thing, Dan? No matter what, you sit down here and you've got 5 women going, whatever.
Yes.
Whatever it is, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Ben Carson did his best to infuriate the liberal hosts on ABC's The View with his views on abortion and women's health.
You sort of feel that there is not actually a war on women, but there may be a war on what's inside of women?
Yeah, the babies. I mean, we're killing babies all over the place. There is no way you're going to convince me that they're not important, that they're just a mass of cells and that you can do anything to them.
This prompted Joy Behar to bring Planned Parenthood into the discussion.
So how important is birth control then to the Republican Party? They should be out there regularly applauding Planned Parenthood for supplying birth control, mammograms, and everything else. Why are they against Planned Parenthood?
Because, Joy, they kill more babies using tax dollars than they provide women with birth control. Oh, and they don't provide mammograms.
We do not have mammogram machines at our health centers, and we've never stated that we did.
Behar then tried to corner Carson about governmental support programs, but he wasn't having any of it.
Here's what I believe in, because I get sick and tired of people, particularly progressives, saying Carson grew up poor. He must have benefited from government programs, and now he wants to withdraw all the programs from poor people.
We did not assume
Wait a minute. I've heard that so many times. You've heard it too. It's a bunch of crap. And what I really actually want to do is provide people with a mechanism for coming out of a state of dependency and climbing the ladder and becoming part of the fabric of America.
Do you agree with Dr. Carson? Share and comment below.
If you're vibing with this fire compilation from The View, don't forget to show some love. Hit that like button, share the goodness with your crew, and make sure to subscribe for more lit content coming your way. Let's keep the party going and spread those good vibes far and wide.
Out of the backfield, Barkley slips 2 tackles and picks up the first down.
Moves right here, makes the first guy miss. The spin move at the last second, and then...
I worry that some of the far left has become so negative in how they talk about the other parties.
Who are these far left people?
Sonny,
I don't think you can both sides of this. Because the far left...
I said hun, like I'm talking to my husband.
The far left did not storm the Capitol.
Last week you called white Republican women cockroaches.
Actually, I didn't. And
you said they're acting like cockroaches.
I used in a similar... Let me answer that.
Okay.
I used a metaphor.
Here's what I'm going to ask you all to do. Here's what I'm going to ask you to do.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you to tone it down a bit because I can't hear anything.
Let
no
me
one
respond.
can hear what's being
But she
said.
just said I called white women roaches.
Go ahead
which
and
my mother's a
respond.
white woman, so
Go
I
ahead and
wouldn't say
respond.
that.
Go ahead and respond.
Second of all, what I used was a metaphor, really more in a simile.
A simile.
And I said, white women Republicans, I just read a poll that the suburbans are now voting Republican. That is like roaches voting for Raid. Now, by the way, that wasn't my joke. Let me finish. That wasn't my joke. That was John Leguizamo's joke. It's a joke that I've used on this show a few weeks ago.
But we
Let me
talk about
finish.
the rhetoric.
Referring to Latinos, and no one had anything to say about it. The last thing I'll say is I continued by saying, do they want to be in Gilead? Do they want to lose their rights? They're
Sonny,
voting
we heard
against
your
their
point.
first
I'm
interest.
trying to make you consider
so you
a perspective
are
you haven't before.
Actually
No, I want you to
twisting
consider
what I said.
No, that is what you said. What you said is it's like
Then
roaches,
don't
right?
say,
It was a simile.
don't
I
say
clarify
that I
But do you
called
understand
white women
why
roaches?
people...
All right, we're
because
going to
I
go to
didn't.
break. We're going to break. Can't take it. Welcome back. We're going to continue the conversation.
But I'm not going to make Whoopi mad. I do want to clarify. I misquoted Sunny. I think she clarified what she said. It was a simile. It was an analogy. It was not saying white Republican women are bugs.
Well, I had a different question, but it struck me that in the first segment you used the term woke, and you said that woke is what was sort of ruining everything. And I know that you're...
No, I didn't say ruining everything. I said that's why Trump could get reelected.
That's why Trump could get reelected.
Yeah.
So the term woke has been, in my view, co-opted by the right and weaponized and bastardized. And so I was surprised to hear you use the term because historically, as you know, because I think you're quite brilliant, that woke is a word used by the black community to note that we must be aware of social injustices.
But words migrate.
So why is that a bad thing?
It's not a bad thing, and originally that was absolutely a great thing. Alert to injustice. Who's not for that? But words do migrate. Now, I'll use any term you want. Okay. Because maybe that is a word that's triggering, and so let's not use that word. I don't know, want to call it the super far left, but don't tell me the left
or maybe the super far right.
Well, he's talking about the left. Well, then
okay, but we talked about that. I mean, I think we agree about the danger of the super far right, and I can't say it enough. I think they're the bigger threat.
In a spirited exchange in The View, Bill Maher and Sunny Hostin sparred over the contentious evolution of the term woke. Maher argued that while woke once stood as a rallying cry for awareness of social injustice, particularly within the black community, it has since been co-opted and transformed into a divisive tool wielded by political extremes. He contended that the term's weaponization has fueled polarization, losing its original intent and becoming a point of contention. Hostin, however, pushed back, suggesting that the term's roots in social awareness and justice remain relevant and meaningful, emphasizing that woke need not be surrendered to partisan misuse. This fundamental disagreement underscored a deeper clash over the trajectory of progressive language and the complexities of defining social consciousness in an increasingly polarized climate. Well, now we'll see how Bill Maher destroyed woke Sunny Hostin.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about that because I think you're almost a free speech absolutist. You believe totally in the right to say what you believe. But I think a lot of us were disturbed to see terrorist flags being waved on American college campuses and seeing this a generation that some I think genuinely care about the plight of the Palestinians. I think most Americans do. But some who seem to be embracing a terrorist organization over the nation of Israel. What do you make of this moment? What do you think it's a result of? How do we fix it?
Well, I mean, it's just astounding to me that they can't tell the good guys from the bad guys. I mean, just morally. I mean, let me tell you, if you're for Hamas, just live in Gaza for a day. And I'm not talking about while the war is on. I mean, before the war. Trust me, you would go running and screaming and begging to live in Tel Aviv, a place that has your values. I mean, women have this is a show watched by a lot of women. Women have no rights in this place and a lot of majority Muslim countries around the world. I mean, there is no equal rights as far as speech, dress,
Are we going to break?
We're going to break.
Okay, sorry, first I want to do this symbolically in support and solidarity with the writers.
Right.
I'm going to walk off your show.
Oh,
Thank you.
okay.
I'll see you on the picket lines in July.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Love you. Thank you.
Delmar Mulroney.
If you're vibing with this fire compilation from The View, don't forget to show some love. Hit that like button, share the goodness with your crew, and make sure to subscribe for more lit content coming your way. Let's keep the party going and spread those good vibes far and wide.
Out of the backfield, Barkley slips 2 tackles and picks up the first down.
Moves right here, makes the first guy miss. The spin move at the last second, and then
was aligning to protect their turf. And they don't like the ideal of people who are not beholden to them and who cannot be controlled coming into Washington, D.C. And that was one of the reasons they didn't like me very much, but I was easier to get rid of than Donald Trump.
Sir, I hate to ask this question, but you have aligned yourself with a man who has bashed women, made countless racist remarks, and you're Ben Carson. Why would you align yourself with that?
Well, you know, you have to look at the good and the bad. There is no perfect person.
No, I know that.
But you know, you look at when Donald Trump first went down to Palm Beach area, and you know, a lot of the clubs down there would not accept Jews and blacks. He insisted on Jews and blacks and helped to break that open. So has he said some things that I wouldn't say or that you wouldn't say? Of course.
But he was also sued by the Justice Department in the 70s for not allowing black tenants into his properties, and he settled with the Justice Department, even though he didn't admit any liability, any wrongdoing. It's very clear to those of us in the law.
Now we know Prosecutor Sunny always has to make herself sound smart.
That means that there was something amiss, and it was a significant consent decree. So the notion that he is a fan of the African American community, I think is
well. I will put it this way: I have met a lot of his employees, including African Americans, and they have nothing but good things to say. Somebody who's hired as many people as he has hired, and you can find very few people who have anything negative to say.
Well, what about
and then you have to look at his family. I always say one of the ways that you measure a person is looking at their children. And how do their children act?
One's a big game hunter. I'm not thrilled with that.
Well, I mean, that's your privilege. But the fact of the matter is, you know, they have been raised very well. They're very respectful. And, you know, I look at a lot of kids who come from very wealthy families, and I am appalled at what I see. So there is no perfect person, but what I think is really the worst thing that threatens our nation right now is a political class, a ruling class, and they are so threatened by anybody who is not beholden to them, they will do virtually anything. And I think that's what's likely to destroy.
You can say that till the cows come home, sir. This guy is, I'm sorry, he's a racist, and he's not good for the country.
What's the alternative?
I'm sorry, I don't understand. He's not said about the white supremacists. He hasn't really said to them, hey, listen, that's not what America stands for. He said, you know, it's too much. You're Ben Carson. You're so much better than this.
Well, I am Ben Carson. And that's the very reason I'm doing this, is because I look at the big picture. Could I focus only on racial issues? Absolutely.
I was enjoying the silence at the table until Whoopi ruined it. The women on The View only focus on racial issues.
Could I focus only on women's issues? Absolutely. I could look at any one little thing and pick anybody apart on it. But right now, the nature of our country is at stake. We are on the precipice, and we are determining what kind of nation we're going to be. Are we going to be a nation that's upformed by the people or upformed by the government? This is a choice that we are making right now.
Okay, if you're going to overlook what he says about women, if you're going to overlook what he says about African Americans, what about what he said about you? He basically said that you had a pathological disease. And wait a minute, hold on. He even compared you to a child molester. Come on. It could be personal, even.
If it were about me, I would be offended.
Right.
But it's about America. We have to save this nation. That is what's
But he's a liar. Unless you say that you're a child molester, he's a liar. Do you want a liar for the presidency?
Joy has no shame. Shall we look at the plethora of lies that Biden tells?
I was sort of raised in the Puerto Rican community. I had a very close relationship with the Greek American community, for real. I am Joe Bidenopoulos. I grew up in a heavily Irish Catholic community in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and a heavily Italian Polish community. When I say I got raised in the black church, he knows I'm not kidding. The Persian culture is amazing. As a student of Persian culture, I probably went to shul more than many of you. I come out of the black community. Back home, my family is Irish American. Fundamentally, I'm like the Palestinian people. I might say raised in synagogues in my state. Everybody in town was either Polish or Italian. I grew up feeling self-conscious. My name didn't end in an SKI. I was raised in a neighborhood where I felt self-conscious. My name didn't end in O. That's kind of how I was raised, like so many Americans of Irish heritage. In HBCU, in your home state was president. I mean, can't even forget about it. That's why I got raised, man. Just like rabbis, synagogues, and Jewish community centers in your hometowns, and that's the tradition I got raised. Hard-working people, middle class, the neighborhoods I got raised in. I was raised on GM. I was raised by Danny Noah. I was raised by a righteous Christian. I got raised on automobile.
Tell me a politician who doesn't tell lies.
Abraham Lincoln. I don't know.
A current day
but
politician.
The lying that he does is continuous. It's on a regular basis.
Well, again,
Fact check goes berserk when he talks. He's got a long Pinocchio nose.
What I have to do is look at who is most likely to oppose the ruling class that is ruining our country.
Yeah, well.
Who is likely?
The ruling class.
Who is likely?
He is the ruling class.
He said that there would be room for you in his cabinet, in his administration. Did he make any promises to you, and is that behind your endorsement?
No, not at all. And in fact, you know, we agreed that we want to save this nation, particularly for the next generation, and talked about a variety of ways to do it. I'm continuing to work on mechanisms of presenting ladders of opportunity that will allow the downtrodden in our society to climb out of the state of dependency. Right now, the programs that have been put forth by both Democrats and Republicans for the last few decades are doing nothing but creating more dependency. We've gone from a can-do nation to a what can you do for me nation. It's not a good thing, and it's not helping America, and it's not helping the world.
Let me ask you this, Dr. Carson, and we know each other. I will say my husband went to Hopkins Medical School, and you and your wife and your family were always so gracious to us by inviting us into your home many times, fellowship, dinner, and so I know you are a man of family values. What do you make of the fact that Donald Trump just yesterday is attacking Ted Cruz's wife based on her looks?
Look, I do not.
Has attacked other women.
I do not condone any of that. I don't condone it
but
from anybody.
But you've endorsed him. Isn't that implicit in that endorsement?
No.
Aren't you
Implicit
endorsing
in the
his
endorsement
behavior?
is not an endorsement of anything that anybody has said or done throughout their lives.
And that's Sunny's second attempt to sound smart. But unfortunately, she was shut down with facts. Maybe she was paying attention to learn something.
The reason, again, that I'm endorsing him is because I recognize that we are heading down the exact same path that we have been on all along. These political types are very slick, and they get you to believe that everything's different now. Now we're going to be wonderful people, and we're not going to be doing this to the populace anymore. And that is absolutely not true.
Do you really think that Trump is correct in saying that people will, you know, be up in arms, quote unquote, riot, he said that, if they did not choose him as the nominee?
I don't think that there would be a physical riot, but I think it would absolutely destroy the Republican Party. There is no way that people who are coming in droves now to support Trump enthusiastically are just going to say, oh, well, whoever you pick is going to be fine.
Is that responsible of him to say, you know, they'll be rioting? I mean, sort of throw gasoline on the fire like that? Is that responsible?
That's really not the point. I mean, we can look.
Well, what's the point?
Well, no, we can look at all these things that politicians and people in the political sphere say.
Yeah.
Or we can say, what are the true issues? It's sort of like what's going on with some of these rallies, where, you know, we've seen some violence.
All of his antics are covering over the true issues. That's the problem. His antics are covering over the true issues.
Right, the true issue is the First Amendment of America and the freedom of speech. And we need to be looking at those kinds of issues. Everybody needs to be looking at those issues, not just one side or the other side. And the fact of the matter is, when you look at these rallies that are going on, do you ever see that happening in a Clinton or Bernie Sanders rally?
They're not promoting. Why not?
No, you don't.
Why not?
Because people on the right don't do that. People on the left do that.
And people on the left don't say, you know, go punch him if you want to, or I take him out on a stretcher. I haven't heard that on the left.
Right. This is what people on the left actually say.
I don't even know why there aren't uprisings all over the country, and maybe there will be.
There needs to be unrest in the streets for as long as there's unrest in our lives.
You got to be ready to throw a punch. You have to be ready to throw a punch.
Donald Trump, I think you need to go back and punch him in the face.
That I thought he should have punched him in the face.
I feel like punching him.
I'd like to take him behind the gym if I were in high school.
If we were in high school, I'd take him behind the gym and beat the hell out of him.
No, I wish we were in high school. I could take him behind the gym.
I will go and take Trump out tonight.
Take him out now.
You're missing my point.
What is the point? What is it?
You're missing the point. The point is that we have to focus on the things that are essential to America, like First Amendment rights, not personalities. That's the problem. We always want to focus on personalities.
But you've met with Donald Trump behind closed doors. Have you seen any evidence that he's really not the bombastic, sort of baiting personality?
You said there were the two.
Are there two Donald Trumps?
There are.
Well, which one is running for president?
Who have you seen? Tell us who you have seen.
Well, I have seen a man who's actually willing to sit down and engage in deep, serious conversations about the problems that affect our country.
Well, why is he holding out on America?
I have seen a man who actually recognizes that he doesn't know everything.
And he doesn't think that's going to work in his election if he shows that side of him? Or is that more of like a male thing I have to show? Yeah, is that more of a male thing?
I think you're going to see more of that side of him coming up.
So he
Did you notice in the last...
He might be fooling his own constituency.
Did you notice in the last debate that he wasn't nearly as bombastic?
Yes.
Did you notice that?
I did.
That means he's transitioning now into general election.
But sir,
I think you're going to continue to see that.
I'm sorry.
But again, there's no perfect person.
No, there isn't a perfect person, but if you're running for president of the United States of America, a country which has said to other countries, bring me the folks that you need who need freedom. We're here for you. When you talk about Mexicans being rapists and murderers, when you talk to women, if he had spoken to your wife the way he's spoken to some of these women, would you take that, sir?
Let me tell you something. When you're very nice, you're very respectful, you talk about the real issues and not get into all these issues, where does it get you? It gets you where it got me. Nowhere, okay?
I love how Dr. Carson shut these old hens down. He didn't even give them an opportunity to do what they love to do.
If you're vibing with this fire compilation from The View, don't forget to show some love. Hit that like button, share the goodness with your crew, and make sure to subscribe for more lit content coming your way. Let's keep the party going and spread those good vibes far and wide.
Out of the backfield, Barkley slips 2 tackles and picks up the first down.
Moves right here, makes the first guy miss. The spin move at the last second, and then...
Family of 4 can't go to McDonald's for less than $50. They can barely pay their rent, and they're fear of losing their home.
Fault. That's McDonald's fault.
It's not. It's inflation.
Listen,
it's inflation.
It's corporate gouging. McDonald's fault. No. It's when you can't pay for groceries. The government doesn't control what your grocery price is. It's corporate gouging.
Inflation is caused by one thing.
What?
Inflation is caused by one thing. The government prints and spends too much money. It's economics 101. It's the only reason. So that policy has driven inflation not just 4%, 25% in 3 years.
Where were we
People
when
can't
your
afford
guy
to live.
corporate gouging? Where were we?
Oh man, this is gonna be good. Come on in, y'all. I got what you need. Don't worry. Come on in.
No, look, every American, everyone, whether you're in politics or sitting in the audience here, everyone has a different life experience, a different set of priorities. Some people think January 6th is an absolute disqualifier. I'm not going to judge you for that. It was horrible, right? It was terrible, right? Or the election now is a disqualifier. I might disagree. My priorities are inflation, cost of living, the homelessness crisis, the border. Other people have your audience. A lot of people are worrying how they're going to pay the bills. They want something to change. So my message is this. Let's stop judging, well, he's doing this and she's doing that. Why don't you do this? Let's respect everyone has a different experience and don't judge people who they're voting for.
Governor, what about the
Y'all know we got the spew. Y'all, you got to grab your bags at the front door. Let me go and give everybody a bag. Come on. We got everybody a bag because I don't need we can't afford nothing in this economy. The Bidenomics, the Biden-Harris accomplishments, everybody's struggling. And we can't afford no cleaning supplies. Don't come in here vomited on the floor as soon as Whoopi and Sonny and Joy, all of them open up their mouth. So we're going to give everybody a bag. Come on. Come on, here, everybody get a bag. Everybody get a bag before you walk in. Everybody get a bag. Everybody get a bag. Let's get her. Everybody get a bag.
She's suspending her campaign. Here's what she said about it.
It is with deep regret, but also with deep gratitude, that I am suspending our campaign today. But I want to be clear with you. I am still very much in this fight, and I will keep fighting every day for what this campaign has been about. Justice for the people, all the people.
So some people say she could never land on a consistent message that stuck with voters. What do you think went wrong here with her? She didn't have any money. That was one of the things she said, that she didn't have enough money to stay in.
Well, and money is the engine of a campaign. So if you don't have money, you can't keep going. But I think the money part's sort of a symptom of bigger problems. I knew it was dead in the water when that resignation letter came out. The New York Times did a piece on her flailing campaign. And an aide sent a resignation letter saying, this is my third presidential campaign. I've never seen an organization treat its staff so poorly. I think
she treated her staff poorly?
Apparently, according to this top aide that worked on her campaign, that there were leadership problems. My biggest issue was her. I didn't think that she connected to voters as well as she could have. That moment, I brought this up yesterday, that moment in the debate where she went after Joe Biden. She thought that was her big moment, and a lot of the media talked about that as being a big moment for her. I thought that just totally fell flat. And if anything, it did the opposite of what she was hoping it would do.
Well, it did eventually, yeah. It didn't help her.
I'm not surprised at all by this, frankly. If you're not winning your home state, you probably shouldn't be winning for president.
It didn't fall flat for me. I think she spoke to a lot of the issues that mattered to me. I was disappointed, actually, that she dropped out and had to suspend her campaign. And I think that, there's no question that there were obviously problems with her campaign. I think there were obviously financial problems, but I don't think that you can look at that without also looking at the fact that as a woman of color, she also faced unprecedented sexism compounded by racism as well as a female candidate of color. And I think it's just surprising that there are people that are still in the race facing issues that are still in the race. Because if you look at polling, for example, Amy Klobuchar, we had her on our show just this week. She's polling lower than Kamala Harris, and she's a former prosecutor.
So how do you explain that? Why is she still there and Kamala's not?
I would say
statistical numbers though are trending upwards, and Kamala's was trending down.
Actually, it was actually. But if you look at the polling that was just done yesterday, Kamala had 5% of the vote, a national poll. It put her in 6th place. Amy Klobuchar and Tulsi Gabbard had 2%. The poll had Andrew Yang at 4%. Even today, there's a poll that had Harris at 6%. She's been steady, actually not trending downward.
But maybe she has less money? Does she have less money than Amy?
What is that?
Does she have less money than Amy?
Can I finish, please?
She maybe did have less. I'm actually not finished speaking, but that's fine.
Does she have less money than Amy, than Kamala?
Forget it.
What is that?
Can I also just point out one point that against what you were making? This country voted in a black president for 2 terms. Hillary Clinton won the popular vote. To say that this country has not proven the opposite of what you're saying, I think is factually wrong. So when you, at some point, you got to look in the mirror as a candidate and say, you know what, maybe it's me. Maybe I'm struggling to connect to the voters. Maybe I am not giving them what they want to hear.
Well, actually, Abby, I think that there's just no question that we did have a black president twice, and I think that's wonderful. But I think the election of President Trump may prove my point. It may prove my point because we're in a very divisive place, and I think when you have
a lot of Trump, the fact that Trump is there could be a reaction to a black president. You ever think of that?
That's the point.
I think that's far-fetched.
Really?
I think it's,
really?
No, I think it comes back. If you're on the Democratic side, if you're running for president, I think you have one thing that you're supposed to do, that is convince the voters to vote for you. I think that ultimately is what it continues to be about. I'm not sure what Trump has to do with that.
To your point, Sonny, all of the front runners have one thing in common. They're all white.
Yeah.
So everybody says that you cannot get the Democratic nomination without the black vote.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen to the Democrats now that we have all white faces up there?
Well, I think when you look behind the numbers for black voters, one of the things that is going on is that black voters think that there was I don't want to speak for all black voters, but looking at the statistics and looking at some of the reporting, black voters don't think that someone like Kamala Harris had a good chance of electability, had a good chance of winning. And there are some people in the audience that are nodding. And so the fact that there could be a Joe Biden, there could be an Elizabeth Warren, that there could be a Pete Buttigieg, they think that that person is more electable than Kamala Harris.
What do you think, Megan?
What I'm going to say is probably unpopular. You know what? Honestly, I grew up on campaigns, literally. Like, my mother was pregnant with me at the '84 convention with Reagan, and a lot of this has to do with ground game. And she ran a really bad campaign. She started out, when I was talking about trending, she opened up huge. 20,000 people in her home state, in her hometown. She did incredible in the first debate. She had a lot of trending upwards, and then she really stumbled when it...
If you're vibing with this fire compilation from The View, don't forget to show some love. Hit that like button, share the goodness with your crew, and make sure to subscribe for more lit content coming your way. Let's keep the party going and spread those good vibes far and wide.
Out of the backfield, Barkley slips 2 tackles and picks up the first down.
Moves right here, makes the first guy miss. The spin move at the last second, and then...
They quoted her, and they said that she has worked. She has worked. I don't want to talk about misquotes. I want to talk about her actual work. But you got to talk about. No, I want to talk about the actual work that has to do with Guantanamo Bay. So she has to get into that discussion about her work on Guantanamo Bay. We don't want any Supreme Court justice that's soft on terrorists. I think we can all agree that even if a terrorist kills one American and then kills one more, that's one too many. And so we have to be tough at some point and understand where she stands, because we should all agree that that's a simple concept. And so Graham walking out, I think, is people in America that passionate, that don't want to see Americans die at the hands of terrorists.
But look, 3 phone calls were made from Schumer and Pelosi. Biden said, I'm in this thing, I'm not leaving. A couple phone calls are made, and all of a sudden he's pushed out. And in 48 hours, all the delegates aren't given a choice of other candidates. They're told, you're going to get behind Kamala.
That's actually not what happened.
Yeah, but where's the other choice?
That's not actually. The other choices decided she was the best choice. That's
but
what
who decided?
Who's
they?
The delegates did. Who were running.
The delegates did.
The delegates did. Yeah. Governor Newsom
but the delegates haven't voted yet, guys.
The delegates decided.
But also, I'm saying Newsom said, I'm not going to challenge this. Yeah. People decided who would have gone in to challenge, said, no, we're not going to challenge her. We actually think. So that's...
A lot of people voted for the ticket.
Well, let me just...
Go ahead,
there was another scenario that could have happened here where President Biden could have said, in order to give you a nudge and really make it a decision we're making, I could step down as president and you could step up right now. And she'd be going into an election.
But he didn't want that.
Right, but I'm saying that is actually something that's a little more disenfranchised.
Let me flip it if I could. What if I said, you know what, Trump, you're losing in the polls now, and we have another candidate, and the head of the Republican National Committee and myself and a bunch of others say, you're out, we're just going to instill Nikki Haley now because the polls aren't good.
We had a party that could operate that way.
But that would be awful. But everyone has to accept that would be awful for America.
The convention happened already.
Yeah, right. But that would be awful because the voters have to decide.
Why would it be awful?
Because voters have to decide, not elites.
It would be 2 women against each other.
Stop calling them elites. That's
insiders, let's say.
Okay,
I don't want to, no. I just want the vote. I'm a big big believer. Everyone should vote. You guys are, but no.
They did vote. They voted for Harris.
Now, please listen to this.
There are reports that say that you have the lowest approval rating of any vice president.
Well, there are polls that also say I have great approval ratings.
Swing voters don't like Harris. How big a drag is Kamala Harris on the ticket?
She's a pretty big drag. I think she was arguably Biden's worst political decision.
They don't like her. There's lots of reasons they don't like her.
Kamala Harris's approval rating is now at 28%, which is an historic low for any modern vice president.
We're hearing it from mainstream media, one outlet after another. One leak after another. That Kamala Harris is the worst vice president ever, the worst politician ever.
We don't see the vice president. What people are saying to me, and I'm sure they're saying it to you, where's the vice president? Some White House officials are feeling that she came off looking unprepared for inevitable questions about when she might visit the southern border.
We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe. And I don't understand the point that you're making.
The point that Lester Holt was making was obvious to anyone else who was watching this interview, which is that the issues at the border are inextricably linked with the portfolio that she's been given.
The border is secure. We have a secure border.
Bidenomics is working.
Prices have gone up. And families and individuals are dealing with the realities of that bread costs more, that gas costs more. And we have to understand what that means. That's about the cost of living going up.
He picked Kamala Harris to be his running mate. She was ranked and is ranked as the most liberal senator in the United States Senate. So he could have gone the other way, but he went to the left.
Joe Biden is running for re-election, and I will be his ticket mate. Full stop. Full stop.
You can't make this up. So these people want you to believe that Kamala Harris, who received the lowest approval rating of any vice president in modern history, somehow is the best choice for this country. Lord help us.
Why not endorse Biden?
Because if I'm sitting here telling my listeners that, you know, you have somebody out there who is a threat to democracy, you have somebody out there who said they want to, you know, suspend the Constitution to overthrow the results of an election. You saw this person, you know, try to lead an attempted coup of this country. And I'm telling people that this guy is a threat to democracy. Have you ever read Project 25? There's only 2 candidates out there. So if I'm saying that about this individual, the choice is clear, right? And I've seen y'all do this on The View before.
That's Charlemagne the God with a lowercase g going at it with the harpies on The View because he won't endorse Biden. Welcome to Nerk News, I'm Nerkish, and The View recently had on another black guest who's capable of independent thought. So you know what that means? They spent an entire segment berating him for not kissing the ring of Joe Biden and the establishment party.
Why do y'all need us to say this if we don't feel comfortable saying it?
No, it's not that we need you to say it, but I think other folks need to hear, because, you know, one of the things I'm sorry, I just jumped you, I'm sorry, but one of the things that we've been talking about is the fact that getting facts out through the media has been seems to be very difficult.
I feel like I just spewed some facts.
Yeah, yes, but we need you to do it on your show.
Well, the reality is I think both candidates are trash. So but I am going to vote in November, and I'm going to vote my best interest, and I'm going to vote who I think, you know, can preserve democracy. So if I think both candidates are trash and I don't feel like, you know, endorsing one, would you rather me endorse an individual or endorse the fact that, hey, we need to go out here and protect democracy?
For the record, this is a pathetic attempt at a humiliation ritual. It's a common tactic used by the left, and particularly women on the left. You see it with Caitlin Collins on CNN and everyone on MSNBC. The View has done it with other minorities that have come on the show, like Killer Mike, and it just goes to show you why Democrats are hemorrhaging voters. People like Killer Mike and Charlemagne don't like Trump at all, but the fact that they aren't sold on Biden qualifies them for this televised 15 minutes of hate.
And by the way, I think it's incredibly powerful to use your platform just to draw the contrast. I actually tend to agree that I don't think an endorsement is somehow more powerful than reminding folks the other person tried to overturn our democracy. That breaks through. But I want to ask you, because you're kind of one of these, we call them double haters. I don't like to use the phrase, but
double haters?
Double haters, like not thrilled with Biden or Trump. And
I've never heard of that, like the chicken fried.
I called it.
I thought that was just called being an American.
Who do you think wins?
Oh, I have no idea. I mean, it's a toss-up at this point. You know, I really don't know. I think the person who goes out there and probably energizes their base the best at this point. And, you know, when you look at somebody like President Biden, it feels like his base is pretty pissed off at him for a number of reasons.
Help him out.
Well, no, look, I actually...
Help him out by doing what?
Because for me, I think back to the time when we couldn't vote. So the idea of voting for, you know, this one or this one it wasn't about our best interest. It was about how do we get to point B.
If you're vibing with this fire compilation from The View, don't forget to show some love. Hit that like button, share the goodness with your crew, and make sure to subscribe for more lit content coming your way. Let's keep the party going and spread those good vibes far and wide.
Out of the backfield, Barkley slips 2 tackles and picks up the first down.
Moves right here, makes the first guy miss. The spin move at the last second, and then...
Against violence and gun violence in particular. And you're a Texan, and you spoke so passionately at the White House last year in the wake of that shooting at Robb Elementary in your hometown of
That's why we're wearing these little pens, right?
And now you have launched the Green Lights Grant Initiative to help make schools safer.
Yes.
Please tell us about that.
Thank you for the opportunity to. So what we found out after what happened at Robb Elementary and many other schools, the first bill was passed in 30 years to help make schools safer. Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. Billions of dollars to safen schools. What I find out months after the bill's been passed is that very few applications are going in from the school districts. And for those that are applying, very few are getting granted and awarded. So the money's still there. And we're like, wait, where's the gap? Well, we found out that these superintendents have to fill out these grants to the government. A lot of them are driving the school bus and they're the PE teacher, and this grant process is 50 pages and it's intimidating.
Wow.
And I don't know about y'all, but I have trouble making it through filling a custom card out without having to scratch stuff out. It is intimidating, so they don't have the expertise at the time. The government wants these grants to be filed. They want to spend the money. It's use it or lose it money. And if we don't spend that money that the government has by 2026, it could be reallocated.
In 2021, you considered a run for governor of the state of Texas. Do you think political office is in your future? Can you see that?
If it's where I would deem myself to be most useful,
yeah.
Yes.
Do you think you could get elected in Texas being anti-gun?
Do I think I could get elected in Texas being anti-gun? One thing about if me in politics is to give you a direct statement right there is me playing a game that I'm not interested in playing.
Okay.
To give you a direct statement right there.
We've got a guy right now, the former president, running for office, openly saying that he promises to essentially be a dictator.
I'm sorry, but kiddingly saying that he would be a dictator for one day to close the borders from, wait for it, criminals and illegals pouring into the country is not dictatorship. It's called leadership, something that you and open border Biden likes a lot of.
Swift has now endorsed Kamala Harris.
Yes.
And she was very, I thought, very smart the way she did it. It was like, you do your research and you decide for yourselves. But I, a single cat woman, as she points to, I am voting for Kamala. Do you think, I always say that in this emergency that we're in, I think that behooves artists to come out and speak for Kamala against Donald Trump, because he is an existential threat to the country. What do you say to that?
You know what? I don't get too deep into politics. I didn't get a chance to watch the debate last night. I obviously have been watching like everybody else. I think voting is an individual choice. And I think that you're right. You have to look at the reality of the country that we are and the country that we want to be, and find the candidate that you feel both are who fits the category of where we want to be. And that's it. And that's what you vote based off of, who you highlight and how you choose to highlight it on whatever platform you have is your prerogative.
Yes.
What we did not have is white women who voted about 52%, right, for Donald Trump. Uneducated white women, is my understanding. You have Latino men, actually, voting more for him. And you have, and black men was not the story, were not the story here, because they voted almost 80% for the vice president.
Right.
So why do you think that uneducated white women voted against their reproductive health freedoms, and why do you think Latino men voted in favor of someone that's going to deport, says he's going to deport the majority of his community.
White women like being called uneducated white women. I think the economy matters, national security matters. But when you put people in these boxes, I think that's a takeaway from this.
But facts are important, and we'll get to that. I want to start with something that I think is also important about facts, because recently on your show here...
I was just going to get to that.
Good. Helping you out.
You want me to ask you the question?
No, look, some of you have accused me of being a traitor to my country, a Russian asset, a Trojan horse, or a useful idiot, I think was the term that you used. Which basically means that I'm naive or lack intelligence to know what's going on.
They use that.
I want to let your viewers know exactly who I am.
All right.
Set the record straight. I am a patriot. I love our country. I am a strong and intelligent woman of color, and I have dedicated almost my entire adult life to protecting the safety, security, and the freedom of all Americans in this country. It was the attacks on 9/11.
President Biden appearing on The View just about an hour ago. He was directly asked about the attempts on Donald Trump's life. Here's how President Biden responded.
He still jokes about Paul Pelosi nearly being beaten to death. He thinks that's funny. Let's see what else. He hinted that the Second Amendment people could do something against Hillary Clinton. And he's calling for a televised military tribunal for Liz Cheney. These are his past statements and ideas. He's blamed now, but now he's blaming rhetoric from you that you inspired these two assassination attempts. After all of the calls for violence, you know, take them out, all the rest of it, you know what it is. Don't you think that that is just unbelievable? And what do you say to that?
Well, I think he is the most unusual president. No. Look, when I ran, I said I was running. One of the first major speeches I made was for Independence Hall about democracy. That democracy is at stake.
And to restore the soul of this country.
Yes, and look, Trump is...
Careful.
There's not a lot of social redeeming value there.
No, you think right.
But here's the thing. He really does not believe in democracy and the guardrails that our system is set up for the abuse of power.
Charles, the news cycle today is about the assassination report in Iran threatening to assassinate Trump. And he goes on to say that Trump has no redeeming social value and doesn't believe in democracy.
President Biden has spent his entire time in the White House going off on 50% of this country. He hates MAGA Republicans. Let's be honest about this. The vitriol, every time he opened his mouth, MAGA Republicans are such an extreme threat. The vitriolic anger and hatred from this president to half of this nation has been on full display, period. That is the bottom line. It's not even about President Trump. He hates anyone who ever voted for President Trump, and that's scary.
That was Mr. Unity. Emily?
Yeah, that's right. Mr. Unity, that continues after he said to put President Trump in the bullseye. You're absolutely right, Charles. And this is someone whose rhetoric is, frankly, so below the office that he is privileged to hold. This is absolutely unacceptable. I will await his apology and accountability. His accountability for this rhetoric on the heels of two assassination attempts.
You're going to wait for the apology.
Harris, how difficult is it to say, let's tone all this down?
See, I don't know. It's a great question. I think that it is difficult not to say the quiet part out loud when you feel like you've been pushed off the ticket. And look, he tried to gloss it over at the United Nations General Assembly speech, talking about he chose to leave for the great of the country. You think that's good, what he just did for the country? To double down on, well, how much this guy deserves it because he's a threat to democracy? To say the things he just said about Trump after two assassination attempts, you think that's good for the country? I'm going to say no, it's not. Biden knows it's not. Biden doesn't care. My big question now is, what else is being said in quiet quarters at the Biden-Harris White House, and how much does she have to say?
What's disturbing is that there are a whole lot of Democrats in this country who are taking his marching orders very seriously. There was a Rasmussen poll released last week that found that nearly 25% of Democrats wish the attempted assassinations had been successful. Realize where we are at, because it is scary.
Yes, everyone tone down the rhetoric. Not sure why that's hard for a commander-in-chief to say.
If you're vibing with this fire compilation from The View, don't forget to show some love. Hit that like button, share the goodness with your crew, and make sure to subscribe for more lit content coming your way. Let's keep the party going and spread those good vibes far and wide.
Out of the backfield, Barkley slips 2 tackles and picks up the first down.
Moves right here, makes the first guy miss. The spin move at the last second, and then.
What stat are you talking
Let me
about?
just dissect
Let me
the
yes,
two.
you can.
Wait,
There's a lot
hold
more
on,
to this.
hold on.
Let me just-
Calm down. Everybody just take a breath. Take a breath.
Well, they didn't vote for him because of racism and misogyny. They voted for him because they felt like, I think the biggest common denominator in this election is people want a good life and ability to provide for their family.
Well,
And whether we agree or not with Donald Trump's plans, they thought that he was reflecting.
Sunny Hostin is now being branded a racist because she attacked Nikki Haley, accusing her of not using her Indian name to appeal to Republican voters. That's why she's using the name Nikki. Take a listen to this clip.
Nikki Haley's gone by Nikki since she was a child. It's documented in high school. I wouldn't be shocked that as somebody, an Indian woman growing up in South Carolina at that time, she actually did to avoid prejudice. So I just want to be careful about critiquing her for going by the name she's always
There are some
gone
of
by.
us that can be chameleons and decide not to embrace our ethnicity so that we can pass.
Sonny, I
so
don't
that
think
we
that's
have
fair.
to-
You go by a different name. Yeah, I didn't want to be the one to say it.
Because most Americans can't pronounce Asuncion because of the
But
undereducation.
I think hard to say too. I don't blame her.
But sometimes I would say what Alyssa's saying is that people gravitate to names for different reasons.
It's just stunning. She is accusing Nikki Haley of not using her real name, while at the same time knowing that she doesn't use her real name. Then she just defends herself. She's like, oh, well, people don't know how to pronounce my name, so it's fine for me to use a nickname. But for some reason, when a Republican does it, it's because she's trying to, pass as white is the implication of this discussion. Nikki Haley hit back on Twitter, and she told Sunny that it was, quote, racist of you to judge my name. Nikki is, quote, an Indian name and is on my birth certificate. And I'm proud of that. Turns out that Nikki is actually her middle name. So she is using her real government given name that she has had since she was born.
My next executive order is for any show with 4 or more Karens and no males with a combined weight of over 800 pounds and a combined age of over 200 years is hereby canceled. Say goodbye to The View because it's not diverse enough and it's unconstitutional and it's horrible.
Let's hear from your co-host.
Do any of you men have any eggs or the possibility of carrying a fetus? How dare you talk about what a fetus wants? You have no idea.
Well, I'd love to see the same energy when it comes to biological men dressing up as women and claiming they can get pregnant because they're trans women. Something tells me Whoopi wouldn't be singing the same tune in that conversation, but we'll leave that aside.
I'm fine if you disagree with abortion. I have no problem with that. My problem comes when you tell me what I need to do with my doctor and my family. How dare you? How dare you?
All right, counterpoint to you, Whoopi Goldberg. Number 2. Did you guys know back at home, by the way, that in 2017, Whoopi Goldberg received a GLAAD Media Award for executively producing a show called Strut? It was a transgendered modeling show. She won the award for speaking up for trans rights and against those trying to roll them back. Oopsies! This is why I love intersectionality. Here we are in the middle of a vicious culture war where a bunch of men playing dress up and trying to convince people that they are women and can give birth, and they can chest feed, and here comes along Whoopi Goldberg, and she's so fired up about abortion that she accidentally tells the truth. Only women can give birth. Only women have a womb that is capable of carrying a child. They say never get in the way of our enemies when they are making a mistake. They also say even a broken clock is right twice a day. I say, thanks, Whoopi, for proving that even idiots are capable of understanding basic.
I actually have found that I think men are more likely to have bizarrely unrealistic expectations. I have so many girlfriends who are highly accomplished, highly educated, great people, and just wonderful women. And the dating pool is absolutely brutal for
What
that.
are these men looking for?
It is entirely unclear to me that it's like, why are their men not jumping to want to date them? So,
Well, Alicia, those are not bizarre and unrealistic expectations because reality is that ultimately men want to build a family. family, okay? And most men don't want to be with an accomplished and educated woman because those women are entitled, demanding, and a pain to deal with. Even different studies will tell you that that's the case. So most of your accomplished and educated friends are very likely to end up with a cat instead of a family, just like Whoopi. Listen to yourselves, because you're sitting here trying to persuade the public that you can read Trump's inner thoughts while you ignore the results of his actions, which included a better economy, lower taxes, and 4 years of peace around the world, all of which are gone under the current president. So I would say the total craziness that you're talking about is taking political advice from a panel of mentally ill hosts and a washed-up Hollywood actor who have no idea what they're talking about.
You questioning my character?
I'm not questioning your character. I'm talking about you're questioning my father's character.
I'm sorry. I didn't question anybody.
That's Donald Trump Jr. fact-checking the women on The View, and things get extremely heated as he calls them out for being the hypocrites that they are.
You've worn blackface. Whoopi,
No,
you
I
said
haven't.
that Roman Polanski.
I'm sorry, and don't. If
You
you
said
do
that
it,
Roman Polanski. It wasn't rape when he raped a child. So let's talk about
let's
things.
talk
Come on,
about
that's
this.
not
So you
fair.
want to bring this up? The question came up.
I did not go in blackface, please.
No, she was not in blackface.
Thank you.
Sorry. Listen, being black, I recognize blackface. This I can say. Okay? I know it when I see it.
Back me up on that. That's
So
what
now that you've broken this piece of ice, because I guess this is the fight you wanted.
It's not the fight I want.
Yeah, it is.
But if we're
Because
talking
when
about character, if we're talking about these
are you
things.
questioning my character?
I'm not
No,
questioning your character. I'm talking about you're questioning my father's character.
I'm
and
not,
I say
I'm
we
sorry.
all have done
I didn't
and said
question
things.
anybody.
He was clearly prepared for the onslaught when he entered the lion's den known as The View. He was already anticipating the barrage of questions that would veer off topic from his book.
Recently, you've been very outspoken about how Hunter Biden has benefited from nepotism.
Yes.
And you say, I wish my name was Hunter Biden. I could make millions off of my father's presidency. Yeah. And your father tweeted this. He said, your father encourages people to buy your book. I think that's benefiting from your dad's presidency, but not that my opinion matters, but let's talk about 2020, because you do talk about 2020 in your book.
The show?
No, 2020. He talks about 2020.
Can I address Hunter Biden
ABC
first?
plug.
Listen, I get that I'm the son of a rich guy from New York. I understand that. My father has done a lot. You know, I've benefited from that as Hunter Biden has. The difference is we did that as a private company. When we got into international politics, the second my father won the presidency, he said, we will not do new foreign deals going forward. Hunter Biden utilized his father's vice presidency to magically end up on a board in Ukraine with a language he doesn't speak, on a business he knows nothing about for $83,000 a month. If I did that, you guys would lose your minds. Understandably.
Can I push back on that a little bit?
So we stopped.
Can I push back a little bit? Because the D.C. hotel, your father's D.C. hotel, opened up just a couple of weeks after his election.
I'm glad you asked.
And you've actually made, I think, according to your father's financial report, he earned about $40.8 million. Just a minute, from his D.C. hotel in 2018. The Attorney General is going to hold a $30,000 holiday party at the D.C. hotel. A lobbying firm with ties to the Saudi government paid $270,000 to the hotel between October 2016 and March 2017.
Well, listen,
thank God he's president. He knows how to make the bucks.
These are the details.
The bottom line is you have made money.
But let me finish. These are the details that the media always neglects. Yes, we're in the hotel business. We have been for decades. That's not a secret. When we take money from a foreign entity, in D.C., most of it's foreign entities, right? The government-related foreign entities, when they come, we literally stroke a check back to the U.S. Treasury. We spend more money on accountants than we can make from this to make sure we're doing that right, because we can't do that. My father gives back his entire salary to the U.S. Treasury to be put towards causes, whether it was alcoholism, whether it was the Department of Interior. So we're literally not making money from any of those foreign governments. We're giving it back to the Treasury. And by the way, there's
an opportunity. You are making money from the hotel based on the presidency.
We're in the hotel business. We're giving back.
That's not what we've done.
They have a duty and obligation to honor their
unlike
business
Hunter
contracts.
Biden, we didn't become international businessmen magically when we got in office.
Listen,
all right, and that's something that no one talks about.
Don't do that.
We
Excuse me.
Did you notice how Trump Jr. strategically brought up Joy Behar's past controversial actions, such as dressing up as a black woman, a move that many would find offensive? While this tactic may seem divisive, it ultimately showcased Trump Jr.'s ability to navigate contentious topics and steer the conversation in his favor. By highlighting instances of hypocrisy and double standards, he effectively demonstrated his mastery of political maneuvering. He found himself in a position where he had to constantly defend himself and deflect certain accusations. The women on the panel continuously interrupted him, making it difficult for any semblance of civil discourse. It's clear to me that the interview lacked courtesy and focus. They didn't even ask him about his book, which should have been the primary topic of discussion. It's basic courtesy to address why someone is appearing on the show and then proceed accordingly. Disregarding this not only shows a lack of respect, but also undermines the purpose of the interview. And it's just another example of how wicked these women are.
If you're vibing with this fire compilation from The View, don't forget to show some love. Hit that like button, share the goodness with your crew, and make sure to subscribe for more lit content coming your way. Let's keep the party going and spread those good vibes far and wide.
Out of the backfield, Barkley slips 2 tackles and picks up the first down.
Moves right here, makes the first guy miss. The spin move at the last second, and then...
There are a lot of folks in the media that try to, anytime a Republican is in front of a TV camera, try to say the election was fair and square and legitimate. You know who y'all don't do that to? You don't do it to Hillary Clinton, who stood up and said Trump stole the election.
They didn't storm the Capitol. They didn't try to kill my former
Abrams, who said that the election was stolen. They sat here and said it was illegitimate.
How could you nominate someone with allegations of child trafficking across state lines and having sex with a 17-year-old? My understanding, further on in the interview, they discussed the fact that once he finds out that she's 17, he stops having sex with her.
Sonny, you have a legal note.
I do have a legal note. Thank you, Whoopi. Matt Gaetz has long denied all allegations, calling the claims, quote, invented, and saying in a statement to ABC News that this false smear following a 3-year criminal investigation should be viewed with great skepticism. That DOJ investigation was closed with no charges being brought.
We'll be right back.
And then COVID hits 10 years later, and the same agencies that knew that are the agencies that shut down the schools for 2 years. Who does that? Who takes away the support system for these children? Who takes them away and shuts it down? And by the way, when they shut it down, they stopped the mandated reporters from being able to see children that were being abused and sexually molested, and in fact sent them home and abandoned them to their abusers with no way to watch, and referrals dropped 50 to 60%. So
there was also a pandemic going on, and they were trying to save
kids' lives. Remember, we know a lot of folks who died during this, so it wasn't, people weren't laying around eating bond, but, well, you know what? We're lucky. Maybe we're lucky they didn't, because we kept them out of the places that they could be safe, because no one wanted to believe we had an issue.
Are you saying no school children died of COVID?
I'm saying it was the safest group. They were the less vulnerable group, and they suffered and will suffer more from the mismanagement of COVID than they will from the exposure to COVID. And that's not an opinion, that's a fact.
You have indicated that you don't believe in systemic racism. What is your definition of systemic racism?
Let me answer the question that you've answered.
Or does it even exist in your mind?
Let me answer the question this way. One of the things I think about, and one of the reasons why I'm on the show, is because of the comments that were made, frankly, on this show, that the only way for a young African-American kid to be successful in this country is to be the exception and not the rule. That is a dangerous, offensive, disgusting message to send to our young people today, that the only way to succeed is by being the exception. I will tell you that if my life is the exception, I can't imagine.
But it is.
But it's not, actually.
It's been 114 years.
Yeah, so the fact of the matter is we've had an African-American president, African-American vice president. We've had 2 African-Americans to be secretaries of the state. In my home city, the police chief is an African-American who's now running for mayor. The head of the highway patrol for South Carolina is an African-American.
Still exceptions.
In 1975, there was about 15% employment in the African-American community. For the first time in the history of the country, it's under 5%.
40%
homelessness
and 50%
of African Americans
50% of the folks in our community
get 13% of the population.
You had a chance to ask the question. I know that I've watched you on the show that you like people to be deferential and respectful, so I'm going to do the same thing.
True.
So here's what I'm going to suggest. I'm going to suggest the fact of the matter is that progress in America is palpable. It can be measured in generations. I look back at the fact that my grandfather, born in 1921 in Sally, South Carolina, when he was on a sidewalk, a white person was coming, he had to step off and not make eye contact. That man believed then, with some doubt now, in the goodness of America, because he believed that having faith in God, faith in himself, and faith in what the future could hold for his kids would unleash opportunities in ways that you cannot imagine. Every kid today can look, just change the stations and see how much progress has been made in this country. ABC, NBC, CBS, ESPN, CNN, Fox News all have African-American and Hispanic hosts. So what I'm suggesting is that the yesterday's exception is today's rule. And for us to suggest...
America has met its promise.
No, of course, the concept of America is that we are going to become a more perfect union. But in fact, the challenges that we face 50 years ago and 60 years ago should not be the same challenges that we face today. And here's the way that you measure that. When my mother was born, about 10% of African Americans got a high school degree, diploma. Today, it's over 90%. When you look at the income, success that we've had...
That's an HBCU stat.
Well, listen, HBCU stat is a good one, because one of the reasons why I took the funding for HBCUs to the highest level in the history of the country, and then I helped make it permanent, is because I believe that education is the closest thing to magic in America. So I'm about making sure that our kids have as many opportunities to succeed as possible. It's one of the reasons why...
I need an opportunity to succeed, because I have to go to... They're begging. They're begging. You're coming.
I'm just getting started. I believe all people can see the success that I've had.
We'll be right back.
Okay.
Look, I don't care if things are 3 years old. I don't want to forget. And I think Americans have a very short attention span, and we have a very short memory. And I think...
Anna, I actually agree with you on the decreasing attention span. But it's sure interesting that you have all these selective memory options where you choose not to forget about the January 6th while you have forgotten all about the BLM riots. We don't need to remember that, right? I mean, down the memory hole, when the rioters literally tried to take over the White House, to the point that the Secret Service had to move Trump to the White House bunker. Do we care about that? Do we need to remember that? How about when the Roe v. Wade protesters took over the Wisconsin Capitol? That was as recent as 2023. And you're not Joe Biden, and you can't blame your dementia for forgetting about that one.
We're all concerned about the innocent civilians that have been collectively punished and murdered, largely children and women. And are you at all concerned about the fact that the International Criminal Court just today issued a subpoena for Bibi Netanyahu?
Well, that's ridiculous, but it's a war.
Why?
It's a war. Because it's a war, and they were attacked, and they're defending themselves. Now, this is a war. Do you think Hamas needs to be destroyed? This is the question.
Yes.
You do?
Yes.
So how can we get out with a ceasefire?
All right. So Hamas needs to be destroyed because they are a terrorist organization who say openly that they want to commit genocide on the Jewish people, on the state of Israel. That's what from the river to the sea means, okay? And they say it very openly. They said, we did this attack. They've attacked Israel 5 times. They've started 5 wars since they were given that land back. They could have chosen to turn that place into any place they wanted to, and they took a lot of money that they took from the international community, and they spent it on bombs and guns and building tunnels. So if they need to be destroyed, how do we do that? It's a war. I don't know how to do that, and you don't know how to do that. I assume the Israeli...
If you're vibing with this fire compilation from The View, don't forget to show some love. Hit that like button, share the goodness with your crew, and make sure to subscribe for more lit content coming your way. Let's keep the party going and spread those good vibes far and wide.
Out of the backfield, Barkley slips 2 tackles and picks up the first down.
Moves right here, makes the first guy miss. The spin move at the last second, and then...
Think about it. In like 08, 09, smartphones came on, and kids stopped living their lives and started watching people live their lives. And so we saw the biggest spike and the highest levels of depression, anxiety, loneliness, and suicidality since records have ever been kept. And it's just continued on and on and on. And then COVID hits 10 years later, and the same agencies that knew that are the agencies that shut down the schools for 2 years. Who does that? Who takes away the support system for these children? Who takes them away and shuts it down? And by the way, when they shut it down, they stopped the mandated reporters from being able to see children that were being abused and sexually molested, and in fact sent them home and abandoned them to their abusers with no way to watch, and referrals dropped 50 to 60%. So
there was also a pandemic going on, and they were trying to save
kids' lives. Remember, we know a lot of folks who died during this. So it wasn't, people weren't laying around eating bond, but, well, you know what? We're lucky. Maybe we're lucky they didn't, because...
No, it's actually been known the entire time, and yes, since the beginning of the pandemic, that the mortality rate among children and teenagers was incredibly low. So the idea that it was ever smart or scientific to close down the schools for as long as we did is not grounded in any actual reality. So let's just fact check that, number one. But number two, notice how dismissive they are of the actual issues that affected our children and still do to this day. The suicides, the abuse. They think it was completely okay because, oh, people didn't get sick, even though kids get the flu, kids get sick all the time. This is how school works. This is how school has always worked. But again, we have Whoopi Goldberg, not a very smart individual, doesn't care, and I'm gonna say it outright, right? Doesn't care about the kids who were abused during the lockdowns, doesn't care about the endless increases in suicides that we saw because I still think it was a great idea. Astonishing opinion. In 2024, you are saying this. Unbelievable. Let's keep listening.
We kept them out of the places that they could be sick because no one wanted to believe we had an issue.
Are you saying...
Again, are you even listening to anything he just said? Anything he just said? Like, this actually, Jenny, as someone who went to high school during this time, and a lot of kids had a lot of serious issues because of it, this take genuinely angers me. Like she just does not care. She totally plays it off, and she keeps going back to, oh, but kids got sick, kids got sick. First of all, again, COVID mortality rate among under 18 was incredibly low. It's lower now, but it was low back then as well. Everyone's always known that. She just doesn't care. Okay, she's going to keep going back to this point.
You know, school children died of COVID?
I'm saying it was the safest group. They were the less vulnerable group, and they suffered and will suffer more from the mismanagement of COVID than they will from the exposure to COVID. And that's not an opinion, that's a fact.
Well, Phil, we don't even have time to talk it out now, man. But thanks for coming. The new book is called Read.
So there's the clip, and again, you have Anna Navarro at the very end there saying, are you saying no children died of COVID? No, of course that's not true. But kids die of the flu. Kids die of all types of diseases that, yes, they get in school. So why not abolish public schools? It's just such a stupid argument. The COVID mortality rate, let me reiterate, among kids that young was incredibly low. Dr. Phil is completely right about that. That is backed by the numbers.
Got a guy right now, the former president, running for office, openly saying that he promises to essentially be a dictator.
I'm sorry, but kiddingly saying that he would be a dictator for one day to close the borders from, wait for it, criminals and illegals pouring into the country is not dictatorship. It's called leadership, something that you and open border Biden likes a lot of.
Damn! Why does Joe Biden have to lower himself to even be on the same stage with this criminal, this 91 times indicted sexual harasser, accused sexual assault?
When Donald Trump's mic gets turned on, he's going to spew misinformation. He is going to lie. He is going to name call because he's a criminal.
Excuse me, Sonny. It's really sad to see how politics can break people. I mean, what you and Joy did here was more of a mental breakdown than anything close to objective arguments. Like, Joy, if you were confident in your guy Joe Biden, you would want him to debate Trump. It's that simple. Conversations are healthy. Watch your blood pressure, by the way. And Sonny, when you say when his mic gets turned on, he's going to spread misinformation and lies, talk about living in a glass house. This show and you are literally pro-Democrat propaganda. So for you to discourage a debate because you may not like what he has to say is actually understandable.
The thing that I really think people need to understand about immigration, it's not a crisis. And the other part about immigration is it's not the problem that Republicans say it is. They say that immigrants run up crime. That is not true, and it hasn't been true for 140 years.
Sonny, I like the way you gaslight your audience by using the word immigration instead of illegal immigration, when you know damn well that the country is in a crisis when it comes to illegal immigrants. Then you make a strong argument by saying that they say that immigrants run up crime when that hasn't been true for 140 years. Then you pat yourself on the back. Now, the question is, are you just dishonest or are you getting paid to lie? I think people here are interested to know that.
What do you think Putin has on Trump?
Well,
What has he got?
I actually think that
Money.
Donald Trump views himself as a Putin-esque
leader,
dictatorial figure.
Yeah.
He said it.
I'm sorry, but Joy, let me start with you. I have listened to you a lot to the point that I feel bad for my brain cells. And I find it amazing that you always call things that goes against your side conspiracy theories. Yet you sit here and say Putin has something on Trump. In fact, you've been doing that for years. And by your own definition, that right there is a conspiracy theory. You are a conspiracy theorist and you should be deplatformed. You're a standard, not mine. And Hakeem, Trump kiddingly said he wants to be a dictator for one day to close the border. So my question is, why would you take him out of context to promote a false narrative, aka a conspiracy theory?
What?
We watch you guys make news every week.
Every
so
day.
it's
We
an
are
honor.
the big political show.
I was just wondering if you were wearing black as a consequence of like the death of the political left in the debate last night. It was quite something to observe. That maybe Whoopi's bell could wake up the Biden campaign if you hit it.
I thought he was actually, he didn't do any harm to himself last
What state's he going to win? I mean, this.
Let's talk about your boss for a second, because yesterday.
Well, I don't. My boss are the people of Northwest Florida.
Yeah, okay. So yesterday, Trump.
Well, don't dismiss them. It's the highest concentration of active duty military in the country.
true.
And
It's
I know Megan's dad served there, so don't. You can
It is
attack me if
true.
you want, but
I'm
don't
not
attack my
attacking you. I'm
constituents.
asking you a question.
I think it is you, the women, who have had the most diabolical lies told to you. How many of you are sitting here now, about to cross this stage, and are thinking about all the promotions and titles you are going to get in your career? Some of you may go on to lead successful careers in the world, but I would venture to guess that the majority of you are most excited about your marriage and the children you will bring into this world.
These are his beliefs, and he's welcome to them. I don't have to believe him.
This is someone who's practicing something called the traditional Latin Mass.
Yes.
Which is divergent from the majority of Catholics. It's compared to being cult-like and extremist like some religions in the Middle East and Asia.
Well, Sarah, Whoopi, everything that the man is saying have constantly been proven by, here's the word, data. Data is not belief, it's data. Married women with children are happier than those who are unmarried or those who are married and do not have children. And children with married biological parents tend to have better outcomes. So, it's very sad that everything that was normal 5 minutes ago is now extreme in the eyes of modern liberalism and feminism. Toxic feminism. I'd call it toxic feminism. I bet TikTok wouldn't like this. Zuckerberg wouldn't like this. It's called toxic feminism because modern liberalism and toxic feminism is destroying the structure of family. And that's not an opinion or a belief. It's a fact.
Donald Trump is doing something that was just brought to my attention this weekend. He's on a podcast tour, like with these some pretty crazy people. Yeah. But the reach of these podcasts is massive. They're getting millions of hits. I saw a clip this weekend that a friend showed me. It was 20 million hits. He is hitting them all.
Okay, Sarah, I'm not sure why you would call podcasters like Lex Fridman, Logan Paul, Aiden Ross, all of these people who, by the way, do a much better job on interviewing people than you do because you are very biased. The host on this show are very biased, but I get it because you're supported by the fake news ABC. But I'm not sure why you would call these people crazy for simply having a conversation with Trump. But I understand your frustration since your show, this show, has millions of dollars in budget and you still cannot even get a fraction of the views that they are pulling in.
Why does Joe Biden have to lower himself to even be on the same stage with this criminal, this 91 times indicted sexual harasser, accused sexual assault?
When Donald Trump's mic gets turned on, he's going to spew misinformation. He is going to lie. He is going to name call because he's a criminal.
Excuse me, Sonny. It's really sad to see how politics can break people. I mean, what you and Joy did here was more of a mental breakdown than anything close to objective arguments. Like, Joy, if you were confident in your guy Joe Biden, you would want him to debate Trump. It's that simple. Conversations are healthy. Watch your blood pressure, by the way. And Sonny, when you say when his mic gets turned on, he's going to spread misinformation and lies, talk about living in a glass house. This show and you are literally pro-Democrat propaganda. So for you to discourage a debate because you may not like what he has to say is actually understandable.
I think. Gotta go.
Gotta go.
Paul said you gotta go. Zip it.
We gotta go.